My name is Anna Westbrook, and I run a public benefit corporation called Anna Westbrook Community Leadership. And I create social maltreatment response training programs, which means when something bad is happening and you need to know how to respond to it, that's what I help with. I use arts integrated training platforms because I think when you make something into a song and a dance, it emotionally engages people. It helps them remember things. And the target problem that I'm addressing with my community is sexual maltreatment. My responses to problems are organized under character-based brands. I like to create imaginary people, and we learn how to respond to those people, and then we can apply it to our real people. The current brand we're using is called Isabel and the Runaway Train, and it is a jazz folk musical that helps people talk about sexual maltreatment and mental health. And the reason that we do that is we want to be able to support survivors. So we do that through both musical theater and professional development programs. So when I say sexual maltreatment, that's not a term that everybody is using. It's an umbrella term that I've created in response to an imaginary spectrum that I believe is in your mind. On one end of the spectrum, we have the word slavery, and on the other end of the spectrum, we have the word harassment. And then in between, there are all of these really scary words. And the scary words all are defined on different areas on the spectrum, depending on what industry you're working in, or really just personal associations. Now, we use this term in the Isabel community to help invite people into the conversation and also to be conscious of people who may have negative reactions, emotional reactions to some of those most scary words. We use this proactively. We do not use it reactively, which means if somebody says, I was, insert scary words, we never correct them and say, please say sexual maltreatment. It's just something that helps us when we are first getting to know someone. So what can we do about this problem? Well, there is an existing solution that is present in the mind of your average person. And the idea is that if we find the right definition of the act somewhere on this spectrum, then we can filter it through an appropriate filter of justice and then get something that looks like justice. And justice we usually associate with some sort of retribution for the person who's done harm, with some sort of emotional support or care for the person who has had the negative experience, and then also some sort of legislative change that will help us to prevent this from happening to others. And that's all very nice, and it would be great if that were happening. However, many of you know the spectrum is subjective and the flow chart is flawed. And that is a difficult thing that we're dealing with. And some of you are actually activists and you're working in the field of addressing this really difficult problem and trying to fix these filters of justice and trying to fix all these forms of retribution. But what about the rest of us? What about the quote unquote normal people who maybe don't exactly know where we fit? We're trying to establish normalcy around survivor support. So I'm talking about your average person. And something that I've noticed as an advocate is that whenever I'm at a happy hour and I explain what I do, it can make people kind of awkward. And some of you are professional advocates, so you probably relate to this. And some of you may have been at a happy hour or coffee hour and had somebody say that they have a really intense job and not known what to say to them. So this next step can actually help you to avoid that awkwardness, because this flowchart can show you some questions that you can ask. Advocacy in the realm of sexual maltreatment is usually divided into either prevention or response. So you can ask the advocate if they say that they work in sexual maltreatment or abuse. If they work primarily in response or prevention, you can ask them then within that if they work in the legal or the social aspect of that. So our program, Isabel and the Runaway Train, where do we fit? Well, we are a response program. We're talking about how to talk to people after this already happened. And we primarily focus on the mental health of the survivor. And that's where we camp out. But we believe that if we can make it normal to know how to support the mental health of the survivor, then those survivors are going to find their place in all of these different activism roles, and the friends of the survivors will find their place. And then we can get Isabel supporters, Isabel meaning representative of survivorship, all throughout this spectrum. So you fit within this program because you are at the end of this program going to be Isabel certified. And what that means is that if Isabel were real, I would let you talk to her.